We don't get to say this often in Los Angeles, so here it is. Home prices are not just continuing to fall in LA after 5 weeks of declines, but now they're falling faster. This week saw the biggest single-week price decline since 2022. Remember 2022 when rates doubled and home sales and home prices fell off a cliff? The numbers this week are wild. I'm Jon Schwartz, a California real estate agent and investor, and you're watching the Los Angeles Real Estate Roundup for August 26th, 2024. Let's get started with mortgage rates. We're looking at the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage over the last 12 months as reported by Mortgage News Daily. And of course, I'm super happy to report that last week mortgage rates ended the week at 6.46%. That's great to see. Just to give us a little recent history, we popped up over 8% late last year, popped back over 7% just a few months ago, popped below 7% in July. Here at the beginning of August, we popped all the way down to 6.4%. And what I'm happy to see is that we're holding steady at this 6.5 point line. What I'm also happy about is the fact that rates should be dropping this week after everything that happened last week. Firstly, as the New York Times reports, the U.S. added 818,000 fewer jobs than reported earlier. This happens when the Labor Department revises their numbers. This is what the revision looked like originally. This is how many new jobs we had relative to last year. And we revised that down, 818,000. That means the housing market is actually a little bit weaker than we thought it was, which is putting more downward pressure on the 10-year Treasury, which puts downward pressure on mortgage rates. So much so that on Friday at the Jackson Hole Economic Symposium, Fed Chair Jerome Powell announced the time has come for interest rate cuts. So we can expect an interest rate cut in September at the September meeting. We were already expecting that. Now, some journalists are asking, how big will the rate cut be? It might not just be a quarter point. We might have a half-point rate cut in September. And of course, the Treasury market is going to react to this news this week, which means that mortgage rates will start to drop already this week, and we'll be keeping an eye on them. And before we get to Los Angeles' numbers, two quick pieces of housekeeping. I'm going to expand this series to cover other California cities. Do you want me to analyze the numbers for your market? If so, tell me in the comments where you are, and your market might be the next to get a weekly roundup. Secondly, if you're a California home buyer, you've either had or will soon have the talk with your agent. That's right, buyer's agents are now required to have their clients sign a commission agreement for 2.5% or 3% before they even start looking at homes. Don't do that. Instead, work with me and my platform, Blueprint. I don't make you sign an agreement up front, and I charge the lowest flat fee in the business, less than 0.7% on a median California home. How do I do it? I teach you how to do the stuff you shouldn't be paying for in the first place, like making your own viewing appointments so you don't have to sign anybody's commission agreement. And then I handle the stuff that you actually need an agent for, getting the paperwork right, negotiating hard on your behalf, making sure you do everything right during the escrow process so you don't lose your earnest money deposit. And I represent buyers everywhere in California. Don't buy with an agent who puts their commission first. Buy with me and Blueprint at buywithblueprint.com. Now let's get into these LA numbers. Right now we're looking at Redfin's weekly market data for the Los Angeles metro market. And as you can see, the median sale price story has been one of declines. We've been seeing a falling median home price in Los Angeles from a high 5 weeks ago at $932,000 to this week, just $908,000. And you can see this week had a particularly sharp drop. In fact, last week, in terms of year over year, we were at 7% above last year's home prices. This week, we have fallen to just 4% above. How significant is this big drop? Well, let's look at some other metrics to get a sense. Right now, we're looking at weeks of supply of housing in Los Angeles. We actually moved vertically this week, if I can find the right dot. There we go. 15.1 weeks of supply on the market, which is exactly where we were last week, 15.1 weeks of supply on the market. But what's noticeable is that we're also exactly where we were in 2022. We have the exact same level of supply relative to demand as we had this week in 2022. Remember 2022? Let's hop back over to median sale price and isolate this year and last year. Just looking at 2022 and 2024, we can see that the downward slopes of these price drops are pretty similar. For the past 5 weeks, home prices in Los Angeles have been dropping at about the same rate as home prices dropped in 2022. Now, if I were a disingenuous, fear-mongering, crash bro YouTuber, and I'm not going to name any names, Nick Early, not naming names, I'd say something like, home prices are falling faster than they were falling in 2022. Back then, we had a 15.4% price decline, peak to trough. If home prices keep falling as fast as they fell this week, we'll see a 30% price crash in Los Angeles. But of course, that's ridiculous, reductionist. I don't even know what to call it. It's not analysis, because analysis has to take into consideration that the story right now is completely different than the story in 2022. In 2022, rates had just doubled. Right now, the story is of falling rates with expectation that rates will fall even more. So do we expect this price line to continue down this way? No, not at all. Any reasonable analysis looking at the whole picture would expect price declines to smooth out as we head into September. And when I say analysis, I don't just mean keeping rates in mind, I mean looking at the bigger inventory picture, which we'll do now. Right now, we're looking at new listings in the LA market. We've seen 2 weeks of decline. This week, we had 103,088 new listings. That's up 11% from last year. Last week, we were up 10.9%, but the week before that, we were up 15.9%. And you can see generally, listings are slowly cooling. I don't expect new listings to pick up between now and the end of the year, what with an election in November. So I think new listings are going to calm down from here forward for the rest of the year. Active listings also took a drop this week. We're down to 15,349 active listings on the Los Angeles market. That's 21.49% over last year. A week ago, we were at 15,479 and 22.85% over last year. And if we scroll down to the year-over-year graph, we can see that indeed active listings relative to last year should continue to decline. Meanwhile, the number of homes sold in Los Angeles is trending precisely with last year's numbers, but we should see this year's home sales begin to overtake last year's home sales because pending sales for this year is up over last year and the growth from last year is only increasing. This week, we sold 1,236 homes in Los Angeles. That's a 7.8% growth over this week last year. Last week, that growth was 7.5%, before that 5%, before that 4.2%, and then we start getting very close to last year's 0.6%. So this recent trend of more pending sales over last year, which started about 3 weeks ago, means that in about one more week, because escrows take a month, we'll start seeing homes sold rise above last year's homes sold. So now you really have to subscribe and come back next week to see if that prediction is wrong or not. Fewer homes on the market with more homes selling means less supply. Add that to more buyers coming into market because of lower mortgage rates, and you have increased demand. Less supply plus increased demand equals upward pressure on pricing in Q4 2024. However, and this isn't stated enough, lower rates also bring more supply to the market. Lower rates induce more home buyers to list their homes. And yes, those homeowners mostly buy again, but still more active inventory reduces the pressure on pricing. Which side will win out this fall and winter? Well, stay tuned to the Los Angeles Real Estate Roundup to find out.